What if Anakin Skywalker left the Jedi Order for Padme in Attack of the Clones? That's our story for today. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get right into it. Our story begins on Naboo, as Anakin Skywalker is suffering more and more every day to keep his true feelings about Padme hidden deep inside of him. Every day since he met Padme roughly 10 years ago, Anakin has thought about her, dreamt of her, waited to see her again, and now that he is with her again, Anakin is in agony. But as he tried getting Padme to reciprocate these feelings, she told him to come back to the real world. He is a Jedi. She is a senator. It would never work. Anakin said they could keep it a secret, but Padme said that living a lie like that would be impossible. And Anakin knew she was right, and so the two of them would go their separate ways that night. And that night, Anakin would give himself two options. He could either stay in the Jedi Order, continue training to be a Jedi, or he could leave the Order and follow the path that he wants to follow. Anakin knew the Jedi and the Republic were on the brink of war, but all he could think about was Padme. He needed to be with her above everything else, and so Anakin accepted what he wanted, and decided that in the morning he would tell Padme that he was leaving the Order for her. As the night went on, Anakin felt happy in his decision, but he also had yet another nightmare about his mother, suffering on Tatooine. They were happening every night, and he had to find her. When morning came around, Padme found Anakin standing on a quiet platform, meditating in front of the lake on Naboo. The breeze from the water was refreshing, and Padme's presence was even more soothing for Anakin. She turned to leave him be, to meditate, but Anakin told her to stay, saying that he needs to talk to her. Padme didn't say a word, but somehow she had a feeling of where this may go, and Anakin said he is going to leave the Jedi Order if it means that he can be with her. He turned around, looking at Padme, grabbing her hands, and with an excited smile, the two of them kissed once more. It was a happy moment, one of the happiest moments of their lives, as both of them were hiding feelings ever since they met back up, and now they could let them out. And after a while, the two of them would travel to Tatooine together to rescue Anakin's mother. During the hyperspace trip, Anakin shut down all communications from the Jedi. He would talk to them later on, but they arrived on Tatooine only for Anakin to be too late. The Tuskens tortured her to death, and now Anakin was even more sure of his decision to leave the Order. It was Obi-Wan who held him back from coming here. Anakin was angry, and he took that anger out on the Tuskens, the men, women, and the children. Across the galaxy, Obi-Wan Kenobi was on Geonosis as he made a discovery. Count Dooku was working with the Trade Federation, Techno Union, and other corporations to build a giant droid army to overwhelm the Republic. He tried to contact Coruscant about this, but his long-range transmitter was knocked out. Instead, Obi-Wan tried contacting Anakin, who was supposed to be in closer range on Naboo, but Obi-Wan got nothing back. It was as if Anakin went dark on communications. This was not good. Obi-Wan was alone on Geonosis with no help to be found, and within seconds, 4 droidicas rolled out from a hidden entrance in the rock wall, and they began firing at Obi-Wan. He blocked the first few shots, but a pistol shot Obi-Wan's lightsaber away, and Jango Fett flew down to capture him before he could contact any Jedi. Anakin shutting off his communications was proving to be a giant mistake. As the hours went by, Anakin was staying on Tatooine for a while, as Padme was trying to comfort him about everything. Obi-Wan was captured, floating in a mini ray shield cell of sorts, and the Jedi were getting increasingly worried about Obi-Wan and Anakin. Yoda recently felt that Skywalker was in terrible pain, but in their recent efforts to reach Anakin, they got nothing back. And the last time they spoke to Obi-Wan, he was assigned to capture the bounty hunter on Kamino, but it had been a long time since then. Windu had an idea, and he used the Jedi beacon to contact all Jedi on missions across the galaxy, asking them to activate their scanners with Obi-Wan's ship code. And so on different planets, Jedi Masters and Knights began scanning for Obi-Wan's ship until Depa Billaba, currently on a mission on Malastare, was in range to Obi-Wan. She informed the Council that the ship was on Geonosis, and he sent out a transmission recently. She relayed Obi-Wan's transmission, and the Jedi Master described what he found: Dooku and the corporate leaders building a droid army before he was captured. And immediately, Windu knew it was time to bring a Jedi strike team to rescue him while Yoda goes to Kamino. Hours later, on Geonosis, Obi-Wan Kenobi was alone in the arena set up for public execution. Dooku visited him in the Ray Shield prison and told Obi-Wan the truth about it all. The Sith control the Republic from the top, and although Obi-Wan doubted every word that came out of Dooku's mouth, he did know that Dooku trained Qui-Gon, and the two of them were quite alike in many ways. But in the arena, Dooku unleashed the three beasts together to kill Obi-Wan. The Acklay, the Reek, and the Nexu moved in on the Jedi Master together. Obi-Wan was determined to stay alive. He had to. Only he knew about Dooku and the droids. He didn't know the Jedi could be coming, so he readied himself. The Acklay lunged first, and Obi-Wan dodged its swipes, jumping high into the air, but the creature's ferocity made every move challenging. The Nexu was stalking Obi-Wan with a predatory gaze, occasionally springing forward in rapid bursts that Obi-Wan barely dodged. The Reek charged in with a ground-shaking force, and Obi-Wan was forced to use all of his training just to keep the beasts at bay. And as the beasts closed in together, Obi-Wan's struggle was desperate. He moved with a speed and intensity that surpassed his usual calm demeanor. His breath was coming in ragged gasps. The Acklay's claws scraped against Obi-Wan's back with searing pain, the Nexu's teeth barely missing his limbs, and the Reek's horns forced Obi-Wan to sidestep again and again. Gradually, the strain of this battle was taking its toll. Obi-Wan's focus would sharpen as he was forced to draw on emotions he usually kept suppressed. The Force, once a calm, guiding presence, was now pulsing with a darkness inside of Obi-Wan, fueling his actions with an intensity that was bordering on feral. The normally serene Jedi's moves were more brutal, and he was tapping into a well of untamed power just to survive. And from above, Dooku watched with an amused curiosity. Obi-Wan was very intriguing to him still, and Dooku saw his potential to someday join him. The Acklay stabbed into the ground, and Obi-Wan moved at lightning speed to break its limbs before it crashed into the ground, and Obi-Wan used its broken claw to stab it to death. The Nexu sprinted at Obi-Wan, but Kenobi flipped over it, using the Force to bring the pole down on its head, and the Reek charged at Obi-Wan, knocking him to the ground, kicking the Jedi across the sandy floor. But Obi-Wan called upon his pain, and he jumped up, reaching out, grabbing the beast with the Force, lifting it up, choking it, snapping its neck. The crowd was in awe, but before anything else could happen, Windu and the strike team arrived at the Battle of Geonosis, and it got all the way underway. Obi-Wan barely recognized himself in this moment, but he let go of the darkness, fighting this battle in the light. The Republic would win the battle when the clone troopers arrived, and Dooku would ultimately escape the planet before Obi-Wan or Yoda could confront him. The Clone Wars had officially begun, but they would go on without Anakin Skywalker. The former Jedi Knight was now on Coruscant, though not in the Jedi Temple. The Battle of Geonosis was many hours ago at this point, and the Jedi had returned to Coruscant, while Anakin was in Padme's apartment. Anakin had recorded a short message for the Jedi, stating he was leaving the Order, and he left it at that. In the council chambers, Yoda, Mace, and Obi-Wan were discussing everything from the war to Dooku saying the Sith were in control to Anakin leaving the Republic. Obi-Wan suspected that Anakin left for Padme, and he remembered so many years ago when he was on the verge of leaving the Order for Satine. Obi-Wan wanted to ask Anakin to come back, but he knew Anakin. If he was ever going to return, it would have to be by his own decision. Obi-Wan couldn't help feeling like he failed himself, failed Qui-Gon, by not completing Anakin's training. He also felt like he failed himself and the Jedi by using the dark side in the Geonosis arena. That darkness still tugged at him, as Obi-Wan knew that once someone got a taste of it, it was nearly impossible to get rid of the feeling. But he had to try. The war would truly get underway from here, and Obi-Wan would be at the center of it with Cody. He was often put into the worst, most gruesome battles, and the 501st Army would often fight with them. The 501st never got a Jedi assigned to be their leader, as they were the most elite legion of clones. They were just great on their own, but they did fight often with Kenobi and the 212th. In these first months, Anakin didn't focus on the war really at all. The death of his mother really got to him, and he tried to let go of his anger and hatred by building a peaceful life on Naboo with Padme. They lived at a lovely house looking out at the lake, but as the war dragged on, Padme was able to see Anakin less and less. When they were together, things were excellent, but after 2 weeks without her, Anakin knew he could not live like this. He didn't want to fight, but he also needed this war to end so he could be with his wife and not have to worry about her anymore. So Anakin would activate his communications, contacting Obi-Wan, asking him to come to Naboo. The two of them hadn't spoken since Anakin left the Order, as he felt bad and just wanted a clean break from all of it. But today, as Obi-Wan entered Anakin's home, the two of them shared a friendly embrace, as they were excited to catch up. Anakin immediately noticed how dark Obi-Wan's eyes were. He was extremely tired, sad as the war dragged on, and Obi-Wan noticed that Anakin was less troubled than ever, and this gave the Jedi Master some much-needed peace. The two of them would talk for a long time, and Anakin would ultimately ask Obi-Wan if there was anything he could do, off the record, that would speed up the end of this war. What Anakin was asking was treasonous for a Jedi, but he was simply a citizen at this point. If Obi-Wan accidentally gave him some information, then whatever Anakin does with that information is up to him. So Anakin went over his discussions with Dooku, where Dooku said that the Sith control the Republic. Obi-Wan didn't truly believe it, but if Anakin could confirm that this is not true, then everyone wins. Sometime later, Obi-Wan would end up saying goodbye, and Anakin would be left with his own thoughts and ideas. Anakin often would listen as Padme ranted and vented about what was wrong with the Republic. Corporations ruled everything, and as much as she and other senators like Bail Organa tried to bring peace, it seemed more and more like this war was going solely for profit. And at the top of all of it was the banking clan of Munilist. So, while Padme was away for the next week on negotiations on Mandalore, Anakin decided to take an undercover trip to Munilist to find whatever he can. He would use his experience as a Jedi to his advantage during this trip, and once on planet, he would go to the banking records, using a mind trick to let himself in, and another one to convince Immune to enter his code into the security system, giving Anakin access to the most influential figures and transactions over the last handful of years. A long time of searching would go by with little to no results, just regular transactions for more clones and other business within the Republic, and Anakin was about to give up when he decided to scale back to around the time that Palpatine became Chancellor, and this would lend interesting results. One name would pop up much more than any other: Higo Damask. And interestingly enough, Damask Holdings was listed as the main contributor for a huge payment to Kamino. Anakin looked into Damask more and more, and these discoveries would show something even more interesting. Every step of the way, Damask was recorded to be guiding Palpatine himself, up until Damask died mysteriously right before Palpatine became Chancellor. So Anakin concluded that Higo Damask was extremely corrupt, working to sow division within the Republic, and his personal student was none other than Palpatine. Anakin would download as much of this information as he could onto a data disk, and he would leave Munilist just as a security breach was discovered, but luckily Anakin didn't leave any evidence of his findings behind, and over the next day or so, Anakin would find Obi-Wan, showing him the data, allowing Obi-Wan to see for himself that Palpatine and Damask oversaw the payments for the clone army, pushing Sifo-Dyas to be the face of the entire movement. This was not good, and Obi-Wan wondered if perhaps this Higo Damask was the Sith Lord that Dooku had referenced. Perhaps Palpatine was the apprentice, now master, of the Sith. Obi-Wan thanked Anakin for saying this, saying he would show the Jedi, and Anakin would say goodbye. Padme was set to return to Naboo today, and so he took off, leaving Obi-Wan with all of the evidence. Once Anakin was gone, Obi-Wan once more felt a pull to the dark that he just couldn't shake. Was Dooku telling the truth on Geonosis? Was this entire war a sham for political gain? Obi-Wan was angry, frustrated, in need of answers, and he didn't know if he could trust the Council to do what was necessary. So instead of showing the Jedi this evidence, Obi-Wan would take off for Sereno. On Sereno, home planet of Dooku, the Sith apprentice was notified that a Jedi starfighter belonging to Obi-Wan Kenobi has exited hyperspace. When Dooku had confirmation that Kenobi was alone, the Jedi was allowed to enter the planet, and he was soon guided into the castle by a squad of Magna Guards. Obi-Wan would enter the main room of the castle and walk to Dooku, not wasting any time. He simply asked if Palpatine is the Sith Lord, and Dooku's immediate expression gave away the truth. Obi-Wan's anger burned in him now, and he asked Dooku why he would willingly join the Sith. Dooku asked Obi-Wan what choice he had, angrily saying that the Jedi Order is blindly serving this Republic being led by a Sith. They're lost. It's time to start over. But Dooku calmed himself, and he told Obi-Wan that with his help, perhaps there is another way. He stood up, telling Obi-Wan that his destiny does not lie with the Jedi. He is destined for so much more. Obi-Wan asked Dooku if he was talking about the Sith, and Dooku shook his head, telling Obi-Wan to look past just Jedi and Sith. Together, they can destroy the Sith, and they can bring peace to the lost galaxy. For Dooku, Obi-Wan was the only tie to the light that he still had. Perhaps if Obi-Wan joined him, helped him destroy Sidious, then they could reform this Republic together as the master and the apprentice of Qui-Gon Jinn, honoring his legacy. Obi-Wan considered this, and he knew there was no other way. So Dooku would tell Palpatine that he has important information on Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. This was always going to be Palpatine's weakness. Ever since Anakin left the Order, the Sith Master was searching for ways to get Anakin back into the fighting, and the best way was always a capture or assassination of Padme. Dooku would ask Sidious for a meeting at their usual place on Coruscant, discussing plans to capture Padme, and Sidious would accept. So Dooku soon got Obi-Wan, Ventress, Grievous, and himself to travel to Coruscant, waiting for the Dark Lord in his lair. It would not be long until Sidious arrived, and Dooku would walk out to meet him. Almost immediately, Sidious stopped and stared at Dooku, asking what game he was playing. Sidious could sense something, and Dooku said that he is sorry, but he has found an alternative to giving his life to the Sith. Dooku thanked Sidious for setting everything up, but now he must finish reforming the galaxy without the Sith, and Dooku ignited his blade as Obi-Wan, Ventress, and Grievous walked out of the other room to ignite their blades as well. Sidious looked to each of them, and part of him was proud of Dooku. He used his need to bring Anakin to the dark side against him. But that pride would quickly end, as Sidious readied himself to fight for the legacy of the Sith, and the battle would erupt as Sidious lunged at Ventress, using his fury, clashing his blades against hers with blinding speed. He moved like a wraith between all four of his adversaries, twisting, turning through the air, taking on all of them at once, but signaling out one at a time on offense, while using defensive moves against the other three. Ventress, for all her strength and agility, would find herself outmatched, every one of her moves anticipated, as Sidious's blade sliced around hers, before slashing downward with a brutal finality, severing her arms in a single, swift stroke. She gasped, a look of shock and terror on her face, before Sidious thrusted his saber through her chest, ending her life in an instant, as he used a force push to send everyone backwards. Grievous wanted this kill. He wanted to prove he could defeat anyone in battle, and his cybernetic limbs propelled him forward with speed. But Sidious flicked his wrist, sending a bolt of lightning crackling through Grievous's body, short-circuiting his systems, sending him crashing to the floor. And as Grievous was convulsing on the floor, Dooku and Obi-Wan were moving back in. They attacked from both sides, a combination of light and dark working together to bring down the common enemy. Obi-Wan was touching the dark, Dooku touching the light, their powers combining together. Sidious cackled, relishing this challenge as he met Dooku's strikes with a ferocity that left even the experienced Sith Lord on the defensive. At the same time, he countered Obi-Wan's precise attacks with a brutal primal force, driving Obi-Wan back step by step. As they moved across the floor, Sidious used the force to plunge Grievous's own sabers into his body to finish him. And despite their efforts, Sidious was a nearly unbeatable force, and with a powerful force lightning, he sent Obi-Wan crashing into a stone pillar, dazing him. Dooku, now alone against his former master, he fought valiantly but knew the end was near. Sidious overwhelmed him, driving him to the floor with a series of blows as the Sith Lord flipped to kill Obi-Wan. As Sidious raised his blade to deliver the killing strike on the Jedi Master, Dooku made a final, desperate decision. With a surge of energy, he called upon the Force to grab hold of Obi-Wan, yanking him out of harm's way, and in the same instant, Dooku hurled himself at Sidious, channeling every ounce of his remaining power into one last devastating attack. Dooku's body slammed into Sidious, and he put his hands to Sidious's head, pouring lightning out of his hands. Sidious screamed in agony, and he plunged his red blade through Dooku's gut, but Dooku didn't stop. He poured as much lightning as it took until Sidious's body couldn't take any more, and the Sith Lord was gone. Obi-Wan ran to Dooku, who stumbled to the floor, and Obi-Wan held him now the same way he once held Qui-Gon. Dooku looked up to Obi-Wan, saying only he could have helped him like this, and he made Obi-Wan promise to rebuild the Republic. Obi-Wan promised, and Dooku died here, after basically redeeming himself to kill the Sith. That night, Obi-Wan would speak to the Council and tell them everything, and the Council would collectively decide to bend the truth a bit. In a Senate meeting, Obi-Wan would tell everyone that Dooku, Ventress, and Grievous assassinated Palpatine, but he and the Jedi managed to take down the Separatist leaders right after, and the Jedi Order would call for peace in this moment. Padme Amidala would send out her pod and announce that she, too, has recently advanced peace talks. The Separatist Senate was willing to exile the corporate leaders and their droid armies if the Republic is ready to negotiate peace, and within days, it would happen. Padme would be honored for her peace negotiations with the title of Interim Chancellor, as she would guide the Republic to a peace treaty with Anakin by her side. With the war over, Padme would argue on the side of the people, as Anakin was able to help expose the massive corruption in the Trade Federation, banking clan, and other corporations, as new regulations were implemented on all of them. Obi-Wan, like Anakin, would leave the Order and he would move to the political side of things, helping the Republic, Separatists, and neutral systems like Mandalore all come together, to reform the galaxy like never before. A trio of Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan would be the leading voices of this reform. As the galaxy unified together, corrupt senators were arrested and replaced, and Jedi outposts were restored across the galaxy. Anakin's peaceful life on Naboo was nice, but he knew it needed more purpose. It was good to get away from the galaxy for a while, but it was his calling now to be with Padme and Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan would reignite his relationship with Satine, as Mandalore played a large role in galactic politics, and together he, Satine, Anakin, and Padme would ensure war does not return to the galaxy. And folks, that is our story for today. I know it kind of evolved into more of a Obi-Wan than Anakin story, but that's the path I thought it would go down. Anakin's just chilling, and Obi-Wan looking for purpose with his apprentice leaving and just the war going on, ends up turning to Dooku. And I thought it'd be a good way to kind of tie Dooku coming back to the light with Obi-Wan kind of going to the dark. But Obi-Wan ultimately staying in the light as Dooku dies and kind of makes him promise to reform the galaxy. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, just was watching Attack the Clones the other day for maybe the 100th time, and was like, I want to do more videos on this movie, so hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought. Giveaway winners, by the way, I announced a giveaway on the previous video, so go check that out, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.